this is Dread from Epic Builds. In today's video topic, we will go over my opinions and thoughts about Last Epoch so far on its journey to become a new ARPG in a competitive market. If you end up enjoying the review, end up downloading the game and start playing, I'd suggest subscribing, as this is one of the best places currently to find good build guides for Last Epoch. And even if you don't need a build guide specifically, I go over and talk about interactions in depth, so you also start learning about how the game functions and how to make your own builds. If I am going to be completely honest, a year ago I would not recommend Last Epoch. Back then, it had too many balance issues, had terrible performance issues, and was less polished. Obviously, as every game in beta, it got better. They have grown and built a much better game over the last year, and I am very proud of their progress, as it takes a lot of work and effort to make a game. Many people like to ignore this fact, but making a game is not easy. But if we're going to talk about now, yes, I would definitely suggest this game. If you don't end up watching the rest of the video, the TLDR is, yes, Last Epoch is very much worth the box price it's currently selling at. Now, if you want to know the reasons why, or what I think currently are the problems with the game, then grab a cup of joe, relax, and sit back as I go over the details. I currently love the amount of freedom I have when creating builds. Sure, there are meta setups, and there are plenty of skills that have only 1 to 2 ways to set up, but in most cases every single skill has at least 3 to 4 different ways of building them, allowing a variety in build design. For reference, I could be playing a flurry blade dancer, and it could be completely different than a friend of mine who is playing the same skill and same mastery. Obviously, as the game becomes more and more popular, this might not be the case later on, but currently I've done more than 100 builds on the channel, and still feel like as though I have plenty to go before I feel like as though I am quote-unquote done. The stash tab system in Last Epoch is thorough and detailed. I can put items in my stash, sort them with one button, categorize them with folders, and search my entire stash at once with a simple search bar. It is by far one of the best stash systems I've ever used in any ARPG, and if I want to expand it, I can just use the in-game gold to do so. Just being able to search through my entire stash at once makes it very easy for me to keep things nice, organized, and find items that I normally would lose. Currently, after reaching about level 40 to 50, you can easily enter the Monolith of Fate and start doing the endgame grind. This has a total of 9 different islands to conquer in the Monolith. But in my humble opinion, only 7 matter as of making this video due to blessings. Blessings are a reward for beating the boss of an island, which is spawned after reaching enough stability through finishing Monolith Echoes in its island. You then do 2 missions, then 1 boss. After defeating the boss, you have a choice between 3 to 5 blessings, which come from a blessing pool that is unique for each Monolith Island, and can re-roll them by just repeating the same process. These blessings usually have strong stats, and can make gearing an absolute breeze, or bring your character to a whole new level of strength. The second part of Endgame is corruption pushing. When you finish the 3 level 90 base Monolith bosses, you can empower your monoliths, changing them all to item level 100, meaning you can start the corruption grind. You gain corruption by interacting with the main boss of the game currently, the Shade of Orbis, although this will change in the future as more endgame content is added. This is just currently what we have. The Shade of Orbis is an amazing boss, as to push corruption you need to kill him, and you end up killing him a lot, over and over again, to advance your corruption higher for better chances at good blessings, better item rarity, which actually matters for Last Epoch, and chances at his signature unique, the Omnis, which is one of the premier chase uniques currently in the game. Normally, killing a boss this many times would get very boring, but they've effectively removed this concern from my mind as the Shade of Orbis comes in many forms. He has a large amount of attacks and skills he can use in his arsenal, but is randomized every single time you fight him. His element of damage, currently between fire, poison, blood, cold, and lightning, also determines what skills he has too, while still having the void thing built in. As you push up in corruption, and as he gains modifiers from your adventures in the Monolith of Fate, he will get scarier and scarier, and killing difficult shades has become a bit of a sport in the community, i.e. who can beat the nastiest of shades, and this combined with the infrequency you fight him, this makes every Orbis fight an exciting thrill and a lot of fun. How's endgame crafting in last Epoch? Well, currently the crafting system is bad, and even the devs think so as well, as today, the day that this video is published, there's going to be a new patch that completely revamps crafting and adds a lot more stuff than just that. And I think it's going to be absolutely amazing after reading the changes. Thankfully, if you're watching this video, you won't have to deal with the fracture system, as it was absolutely one of the most stressful times I've had with this game. And with the new leaks of the crafting system and, of course, the legendaries, being able to combine rare and unique items into literally just unique plus items, it's going to be absolutely insane. And I really am looking forward to the new crafting changes. What about multiplayer? When is it coming? This is actually something the developers have been very open about, as they have been working on it for the past year now, and it's getting close to the point where they can start having people test it in a public space, and they've gone with the approach that it needs to be good on release, unlike some other titles, cough, Wilson, cough. If you want to know the current progress of multiplayer, I'd suggest going into the official Discord and asking multiplayer when, and wait for a response. It's one of the favorite things for people to answer, trust me. Link to the current dev blog about multiplayer in the description. Please don't spam the Discord, please. What are some of the problems Last Epoch currently has? So there are a large majority of problems that will be fixed when we get live servers and server authority. If you don't know, Last Epoch is currently an offline client other than having to log in. This causes a lot of the current community's problems, mainly regarding towards the competitive relevance of the arena leaderboards, which I completely ignored when talking about the endgame systems of Last Epoch, due to the fact that the rampant amount of cheating kind of just invalidates even having a leaderboard in the first place. But all of those problems will be fixed mostly eventually when we get to multiplayer, so I won't really bore you with those problems. The only other problem I could see is the current endgame grind in regards to alt characters. When you push corruption on a character, it is saved and then used to boost him through corruption on his other monoliths, allowing you to more easily swap to farm different blessings or boss drops in the other islands and not have to do the insane corruption grind. But this is only for the same character. If you create a new character, you have to go through the same grind of beating all the non-empowered monoliths and then pushing corruption again to somewhat get back to where you were on the other character. That is one thing that Path of Exile excels at, as if you are leveling a new build, you can easily push your build into red tier maps when you feel the character is ready for it. That's one thing I'd love to see before the 1.0 release, but it's not something that's going to completely ruin the game or anything, and I don't think that it would kill the game if it didn't have this on launch. All right, for the first interview here, we got CaptainLance here. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
CaptainLance, how y'all doing?
He's actually pretty well known around Path of Exile for making a bunch of RF builds, and that's kind of a shared passion of mine with Judgment builds in Last Epoch, so we get along.
Mostly, probably. I think the Judgment builds are pretty cool, but I have not successfully made one. I could have last Epoch.
They buffed a lot of them. But so my first question is going to be, what do you like about Last Epoch, and why would you recommend it to people?
So, from my experience, which I haven't played Last Epoch too recently, but I always got the impression that the developers were very interested in continuing to basically expand on their game, improve their game systems, improve just like it's like not a dead game if that makes sense. It's like I look at Diablo, I look at some of the other ARPGs in the genre, and they're just stagnant. They're not going anywhere. And Last Epoch, from basically I played it a few months ago, and since then there's been 3, 4 large patches that redid the endgame systems. They're redoing uniques. They're redoing a lot of different things where they're adding a lot of content. And although personally, when I looked at Last Epoch initially, I was like, okay, this is missing a little bit of stuff. I can start seeing them fill in the blanks of, okay, that's something I wanted to see in this game to make it something I enjoy. So personally, I can see as they continue to develop it, it'll be a game I'll be a lot more interested in coming back to every time they add more content to it. But
Okay.
that's probably the main thing that draws me to Last Epoch, I'd say.
Yeah, and now for the other question here. What do you not like about Last Epoch? What are your opinions about that?
So, from my experience, and this again is based on multiple months ago, and there's been many patches where I think this has probably been adjusted to some extent. I think even from the stuff I've skimmed, initially my impression was I felt the gameplay was a bit slower and clunky, but that's from my impression of being a cocaine addict of Path of Exile, where everything's fast paced, zoom, 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 and I just don't think Last Epoch's necessarily trying to be that game, and I don't think that's necessarily a fault of Last Epoch. I think that's more of just I've been so high on the speed of Path of Exile that when I go and I try something else, which is probably still perfectly fine pacing wise, just the shock of the difference feels weird. But I think that's probably fine. I'd play it a little bit and I'd get more of a feel for it. I think the clunkiness or what I would feel as clunkiness would probably wear off a bit. And then I think my other gripe with it was the passive tree, not necessarily the skills that have their own select passive trees. I think that's a pretty good take and pretty unique, and I like that aspect. I think the passive trees in general for each of the classes, they felt to me a bit one-dimensional, a bit flat, and I would still say they were quite a bit more complex than other ARPGs. Like I'm of course thinking of Diablo because that's one of the ones I'm most familiar with, where the passive tree was basically non-existent. From what I could tell, there wasn't really a passive tree. Um, so it's kind of like I like complexity, and I feel like Last Epoch's still lacking a little bit in the complexity where it could just intrigue me from the interesting decisions I have to make based on cost and opportunity and stuff like that. But I think it's getting there. I think it's improving for sure.
Perfect. All right, that's all I really have for you today, Captain Lance. Thank you for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Can't wait to see you playing Last Epoch again and watch you fail. I mean, succeed.
Oh yeah, that's I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how. Hopefully, next time goes better than last time. The truth is, all my negative feedback is just because I'm salty because I suck at Last Epoch.
It's okay. You have like one of the only people who play this game too much to ask questions, so you shouldn't do that bad this time.
We'll get your secret advice, tips
Yeah,
and
of
tricks.
course. Well, I'll talk to you later, Captain Lance.
Sounds good.
See ya. All right, for the second guest of the interviews here, I have Tenki. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm 10. I play a lot of action RPGs, and I tend to focus on the analytical elements. So, if the game has an economy, if you can break that economy, if you can break the game, make an overpowered build, or maybe just study some obscure skill interactions to find something that most people were missing because it was right under their noses, that's my specialty.
Perfect. All right, and so my first question for you today is going to be, what do you like about Last Epoch, and would you recommend it to like a new player, like someone random, like who plays Path of Exile or something?
My favorite thing about Last Epoch is the character customization via the skill tree. It feels like a really good middle ground between the extreme basics that you might see in a game like Diablo 3, where it's skill plus rune and that's it, the convoluted nonsense in Wolcen, where it's skill plus rune but half the runes don't do anything, or the incredible level of complexity in PoE, that often loses players with skill gems, support gems, and going from there. Having a skill passive tree that changes skill behaviors, that clearly labels things like what is a more multiplier that multiplies with other things, or what's an increased multiplier that adds together, is great.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree with that too. I really like the skill system as well. So, what are your dislikes for Last Epoch? Disregarding obviously the crafting, because I know you don't like it, but it's getting changed.
So disregarding the crafting, which is getting fixed, and I really like the direction they're going with the crafting, it'll come down to a lot of balance and numbers. That aside, my biggest dislike is currently nothing transfers from character to character, which means that right now the game feels like it's in a perpetual state of being a tutorial. Now, it might be a little bit unfair to criticize a game that's in beta for this, but until multiplayer comes out, it does feel like you're going to end up running up against a wall where if you play too much, you're going to feel limited not by my build can't do this, but just I have to go through the motions of this incredibly boring thing. I have to go through the motions of this incredibly tedious thing for about 10 to 30 hours, depending on how fast you are at it, for every new character I make. So I don't really want to make another character. I just want to play the same things I already have.
Yeah, I agree with that too. That's actually in the review as well. Perfect. All right.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for coming on, Tenkiei. Thank you for giving me your thoughts.
Anytime. And I'm very much looking forward to playing the multiplayer for Last Epoch.
Perfect. All right, here we are with SuitSizeSmall. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's going on, everyone? Hope you guys are having a wonderful day today. My name's SuitSizeSmall. I am a streamer, cosplayer. I've been playing Path of Exile since around 2014, and most notably, I am the person who maintains PoE Lab every single day. And for those who don't know what PoE Lab is, Path of Exile has an area called the Labyrinth. It is, as you would expect, Labyrinth E, and it changes every day. And I am responsible for essentially mapping it out for everybody.
Perfect. Yeah, I use your website all the time when I'm playing Path of Exile.
Thank you.
So, for the interview here, what do you like about Last Epoch, and what could you recommend it like to someone?
Honestly, the main reason I like Last Epoch, and one of the biggest reasons why I would just recommend it to people in general, is it's just fresh and new. As mentioned, been playing Path of Exile since 2014. Played every other ARPG under the sun, from Diablo to Grim Dawn, and since Last Epoch has been in early access for a while, it's just fresh and new compared to everything else. It looks really good. It plays really well. Despite being early access, it feels fairly well polished and everything. There is good skill variety, which is pretty important from coming from Path of Exile, where build variety is really basically a necessity at this point for me to play games. There's also endgame content. There's endgame content in an early access game that's always appreciated. There's longevity of the game. It's just overall very refreshing to kind of hop into.
Perfect. All right. And also, as well, is there anything you don't like about Last Epoch?
Um, despite having I don't know if it's, I know there's the upcoming 8.4 patch. I don't know if they're changing the monolith system at all, but last I played, it still felt very, very tedious, and because every single monolith was locked off to a level, it felt very, very just gated. That I was just having to get to this bar, fill up this bar so I can get to the next zone, and it doesn't matter if I'm over leveled already. I just have to fill up the bar regardless. Um, Another thing is this is kind of a weird one. I like the skill system. I like the augments of the skill system. I hate experimenting with skills though, because this is also a bit of an issue PoE shares that if you want to switch skills, it feels like I'm always heavily punished for doing so. Because despite the fact that there's that minimal skill level that happens every few levels, I'm still switching to something objectively worse if I want to try something new. Because the levels go down, you have to rebuild the levels, you have to respec all the points. It lets you mess around with new builds, but at the same time, it doesn't feel good that I'm just switching to something strictly worse when I just want to try out something different for a bit. And I guess this is another weird thing to discuss because I don't really know how many ARPGs I've actually nailed this properly, which is mana. I have issues with the mana system because it feels like it tries to have generators and spenders, but the generators are never fast enough. Or when you're just trying to spend your mana, it, especially early on, there's very little mana recovery for I think it was the sorcerer or the mage, where I would spam whatever skill, run out of mana, and then kind of just have to wait around for a bit or use some sort of generator, which won't fill you all the way up that quickly. So just leveling with the mana system doesn't feel great. I can't always be using one skill. I always have to be using 2 skills, or potentially sometimes juggling 3. I don't really know any RPG that actually kind of nails down the idea of you can always use your primary skill because you're maintaining your mana well. But that's all I can really think of off the top of my head.
Perfect. Thank you for coming on, Suit.
All right, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for getting some time to actually come on as well. I know you've been busy with finals and stuff.
No problem. Just wrapped it up today, so I'm good there.
Perfect. All right. All right, we got Dbrunski here on call. Dbrunski, go right ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Dbrunski. I'm primarily a Diablo 2 Twitch streamer and YouTube content creator, but I have messed around quite a bit recently playing Last Epoch.
All right, and for you, Dbrunski, what do you like about Last Epoch currently, and what could you recommend it to like other people?
My favorite thing about the game is the way that it kind of rolls out playing. So when you start off, it's not super overwhelming. It's not too difficult to grasp the basic concepts of the skill trees and the passive skill tree, and then the progression of the items. But with that being said, it does have a lot of in-game depth when you reach the end-game content. So I do think it really balances the best of both worlds between getting new players started in the game, like getting their feet grounded and understanding the concepts, but then being able to min and max specific builds in the later portion of the game. I just think it does a really great job of balancing the two together.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree with all that. Now, what do you not like about Last Epoch? And you can say whatever you want. I don't mind.
The only thing that I don't currently like about it in its current form, and again, I want to use the word like current very loosely because it's constantly being updated and it's still in beta, like it actually hasn't even been released yet. But I feel like the variation of the different types of mission in the endgame content is a little bit lacking. I do like the different environments, but it does seem like after you have a few hundred hours into the game, which I do, kind of all boils down to sort of the same mission types, like destroy this spire, kill this amount of X amount of waves, or kill a certain amount of monsters till you find this super unique boss, and then kill that one. It just kind of gets repetitive. So it would be cool if they kind of maybe doubled or tripled the like number of types of endgame content missions. But I do want to say that that criticism, I use that very loosely because it is getting substantial updates very frequently. So it's not even a final work in progress. So that'd probably be the only main criticism I have of the game in its current form.
Perfect. Yeah, I kind of agree with that as well because I do agree that it does get tiresome only doing spire missions or only doing like arena missions and stuff like that. But they have been adding more and more. So I'm curious to see if they'll add more. But yeah, with all that being said, thank you so much to Brunsky for coming on. I know you're a very busy man and you do a lot of stuff, so it's so nice for you to make the time to come on real quick.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right. All right. If you've made it this far in the video, it means you watched the entire video. So thank you for watching the video. Thank you for all the continued support you guys have been giving me. This is pretty much my magnum opus. This is like by far one of the best videos I've ever made. It's a collaboration between me and a lot of other people who play this game and love this game. And I want to thank you guys for being on this journey with me because we're almost already at 4,000 subscribers. Like, that is nuts. Like, when I started this, I had no idea it was going to be this far. I just started uploading random Last Epoch stuff and bam, here we are. So thank you all for watching this and have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you're at, and bye.